MPO Executive Committee meeting to order. First item is a vote on the approval of the agenda. Vote. Okay. Moved by Anthony, seconded by Altoona. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Vote same sign. Thank you. Up next, the vote on the approval of the September meeting minutes. Vote. Second. Moved by Des Moines, seconded by Altoona. Any discussion on the September meeting minutes? None. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Cards are approved. Up next, we've got to discuss next year. We have a report vote on the 2026 meeting minutes. Turn this over to Dylan. I think there's a handout.
Yeah, it's objecting to it. It's got a lot of stuff going on. I will.
So we've got for you the calendar year 26 meeting date. We shared this with you last time. I don't think anything has changed from you before. A couple of things I'll mention is the December meeting. We are targeting to have meetings. We'll do our best to hold to that. If we need to have them, we can always have them. I would say March is also one that we will target. Try not to have them, though something always seems to come up. But so we've got that on there for now. But otherwise, if everyone's comfortable with us, we can move forward. We'll get this published as for our public notice requirements.
Move approval.
Moved by Des Moines, seconded by
Altoona. I didn't cut you off. So I mean, we know what the dates are. We're
kind of getting a long way to anyone doing.
There you was.
Power is one of your head. You want to start to come over here?
Let's go. The executive director.
Okay, Dylan sits around waiting for me so we can talk.
You got that buried out of your stack there.
We have a.
Okay, I think we have a motion.
We do. I don't believe we have anything important to discuss. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, I figured some might vote no there, honestly.
No, I'm good.
I really want to talk about that some more. 26 meeting minutes are approved. Up next, report discuss. Up first, Water Trails Grant Agreement Amendment. Dylan.
Okay, so we've got two water trails related things here. So I'll kind of touch on them both as I talk, so I don't talk too long. I just want to point out too, we've got Monica Converse from Icon and Henry from Snyder and Associates here with us as well, in case there's questions that I'm not able to answer if they want to elaborate on things. But two things for you. One is an amendment to the agreement that the MPO has with the E on the actual agreement for the build grant. What the current build grant says is that the three main projects that are listed in there, which include Scott Avenue in River, Scott Avenue Uplands, and Harriet Street, are all supposed to be done next month. And no surprise, they're not going to be done next month, but maybe the exception period. That one's pretty much done with a few things we'll cover in the next item. The other ones aren't going to be done. So what we've done is coordinated with Iowa DOT, Federal Highway, Icon, Snyder, everybody here, and we've moved those dates to 2027 for the most part. Harriet is 2026. The others are 2027.
Is it going to take that long? It's not going to take.
It won't take that long, but
Unless it-
so as much time as possible, so we don't have to come back if we have another high water event.
Project in Des Moines always takes a long time.
No, they're doing well. They are.
Because
Yeah.
we have rivers.
Yeah.
The agreement that we have with Federal Highway says everything has to be done in 2027, or that's when the agreement.
But that includes Prospect and Berlin.
They have to be started by then. They don't have to be finished by then.
Okay.
So these ones need to be finished by then.
Right.
Those ones have to be started by then.
Okay.
So that's the recall.
Okay,
So
perfect.
that's really all this agreement does. It just updates those dates.
Okay.
The change orders I'll touch on real quick too, if you want to jump to those, and then I can turn it over to Monica and Henry if they want to elaborate on anything. So again, the delays necessitating that first item is because of the high water events we've had over the last couple of years. Some of these change orders also touch on those too, or because of those. So the Harriet Street, this would be our sixth changeover. There was plantings for vegetation, and these are really the last kind of punchline type things. Vegetation, plantings for trees and so forth. They didn't take because it was underwater for a couple, so they have to do those again. The Scott Avenue in water, because of some of the high water events, the retaining wall was damaged, and there's a few other things in there too, but that was a big piece of it. So that needs to be repaired. And then the Scott Avenue uplands, not so much related, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, to the high water, but we found a lot of contaminated soil. You can't just take that and dump it anywhere. You got to take it to a special place, so that adds cost to it. So that was that's what necessitated that change order for the upland. I'll pause there and turn it over to Henry, Monica. If there's anything you want to add correct what I said, anything like that, feel free.
Yeah. So yeah, just building on what Dylan said there, the contaminated soil, we did the testing at the beginning of the project that identified high concentrations of lead within an area of the project. So all that material has been removed from the project and brought to Metro Waste. This is just accounting for that material being brought there. The unforeseen conditions that Dylan touched on, we have a high pressure gas main that goes underneath both the in-river and the Uplands project. We performed pothole locates before work got around that gas main just to verify where it was vertically. So we weren't going to have any conflicts with that gas main, and it was actually we found that it was higher than we thought. So we had to, yeah, we had to redesign part of the Uplands project to account for that, so the contractor's not working in dangerous conditions. So that change order number one for the Uplands accounts for both of those things. There's a good amount of bid items that had quantity changes due to that redesign, and then the contaminated soil. The in-river, we had damage from the high water event. The retaining wall was in construction when the water came up, and the water scoured out beneath the footing, which then sheared the wall at a contraction joint. So pretty much the contractor just reconstructed the wall from that joint to the end of the wall, and we are back in working order there. That change order also includes the contract date extensions that were tied to the build grant agreement. So the stage 2 of the in-river is the total project completion. That is being extended from November 30th of this year to April 13th of 2026. And that is due to the high water event this past summer into, yeah, I guess it would be summer.
Spring, was it spring, summer?
It was June 25th to August 17th is the high water event there. And then the cleanup time and site repairs added on to that lead to the April date.
But you're not putting vegetation in where it's gonna, I mean, we're gonna have this issue, obviously, in the future.
Correct.
So you're not putting vegetation where it's gonna.
We do have wetland seeding, and we
So
do
once
have,
it's established.
yep, we do have wetland seeding, and we also have trees that are meant to thrive in wetland areas.
Okay.
Just with them being so young, and they got planted right before a high water event. Yeah, we consulted landscape architects, and yeah, it was determined that the high waters didn't allow them to take. So
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, that covers A and B, right? Yep. Move on to C, which is mobilize tomorrow revision markets.
Months ago, I brought forward the need to do some revisions to our long range plan to update our safety goals to match our comprehensive safety action plan. Today, we're just saying we've completed those revisions. Here's the list of the total revisions to the LRTP, including an appendix item that allows us to now list our revisions in what was the consent. So, if there's any questions, happy to take those. Otherwise, we'll be seeing the revisions.
Mark. Moving on to mobilize tomorrow for fourth market.
Okay, I also mentioned a few months ago that we are gonna look at goals quarterly. So looking at goal 4, that's the text of the goal. We have 4 performance measures that we look at. Goal 4, safety, transit ridership, housing and transportation affordability, and then access to necessity. So we've done some updates on those. First one is safety. You can see the base year, which was shown in the long range plan, the current, which brings data up to 2024, and then our future forecast targets, including for 2050, 0 fatalities. These numbers are 5-year averages. Why, we might see the numbers that are staying pretty solid, even though this year we're having a pretty good, pretty positive year for fatalities, where we're down quite a bit. So next year and then subsequent years we'll see that reduction. I'll note that we have seen a little uptick in non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. I think this year we're also seeing kind of an uptick again. or that's gonna be stable for a little bit, so we need to be built under control, but, these are the ones that we have to report to the federal administration. Any questions on safety goals or targets, performance? Yeah. The other three that I mentioned, total ridership. Dart ridership through fiscal year 2024 was up and in trending in line with the 5-year target, which is 4 million rides. Housing and transportation affordability. The current numbers come from a 2025 update from census data, so it's a little bit backdated though. But we are seeing improvements there, which is great. And then access for necessities. There's no real update to that because the way we calculate it, pretty static. We put a buffer of our multimodal network, and we say here's how many households are within that buffer. We're looking at changing the methodology of that to make it a little bit easier to account for how the network actually functions and travel times function on those corridors. So we might update that in the future, but there's no change right now. Any questions on these?
We have a freight plan update, Marcus.
Yeah, so we are getting kicked off with a update to our freight plan. So a little bit of background on freight planning in the region. We had movement studies for the MPO area in central Iowa in 2002 and 2006. Since then, we haven't really updated our freight movement study, but we have been doing some freight related work. In 2007, there was a Iowa Illinois freight corridor study, and then of course all the work around the transload facility that had been occurring since about 2014. So this study will go back to that 2006 study and say, let's get back to what are we going to do for freight and goods moving throughout the region. So just a little bit of background on how we're thinking about this. We're going to move it away from this idea of focusing on goods and what goods are moving into and out of the region, and focus more on what types of modes are moving those goods and what are the issues that those modes are having in our region. And we're primarily focused on railroad, aviation, and highway and truck movements, with a secondary focus on pipelines and waterways. So the rivers don't have a lot of river freight, but you could technically move goods on the river between points. So we're going to add it. Secondary. This is a lot of text. So just a little bit of overview of the plan. It could be, again, an update of the work we've been doing, focused on the modes. We're going to look at major routes and major trends that are occurring in freight. So things like warehousing and distribution centers are a lot more prevalent than they were in 2006. So we'll bring that to our attention, focus more on that, which brings us to potential conflicts between land uses and the freight system and how those can be worked out efficiently. We'll collaborate with regional stakeholders who focus on freight, so distribution centers, things like that. And then we'll undertake a SWOT analysis to help understand the strengths and weaknesses that we have in our region for freight and what opportunities there might be to really advance freight for the next long-range plan update. So currently we have 2 surveys available. One is for the stakeholders to get into, what type of movements are you making, what type of modes, what goods are you moving, are you moving in and out of the region, what are the kind of trends that we need to be thinking about. And then we have one for the jurisdictions, which we passed along to the technical committee this morning, just to get the understanding of what are the major industries and modes that are impacting your communities, what are specific infrastructure issues that you're hearing about, so that we can bring those together and put it in and help us form decision making when we think about projects. One of the items that we've also made available to all the jurisdictions is this truck routes map. So this map consolidates the regional truck routes from communities into one location, so you can see how they connect. And then we've asked the technical committee members to post any changes to instances or routing to let us know, so we can make that as So just last item here, real brief. This is how we think the plan's gonna develop. We'll distribute the survey. We've been working on draft introductory materials and identifying the needs for mapping. And then we'll work with our freight roundtable Q3 to identify trends. And then as we get into trends, we'll talk about SWOT analysis, finish up plan development, and have it for approval by the end. Yep.
2006, you do the same approach, like survey and so forth.
It was a similar survey, then do the work kind of approach, but it was more focused on getting down to the nitty gritty of like what commodities are you moving and how much and how, what by what mode. We really didn't have that commodity focus, and just focusing on like where are the issues, like, what are your concerns.
What's a stakeholder example?
It could be anything from like Amazon or, you know, any of the major manufacturing centers who do manufacturing.
CP logistics and activity.
Yeah,
Tons of warehouses.
so
Nice plug.
yeah. So our surveys have gone out to our freight roundtable, which has a lot of great stakeholders on it. Then we've also talked to the Great Point Partnership about stepping into different manufacturers who are going to have a lot of freight movement.
I was gonna quickly highlight this one of the values of that we saw in being an investor in the partnership again, which we all went along with. And this is the place where we could really utilize them for our public engagement.
Don't worry, they'll look at your report. Could have been yours. No thanks. You mean I could have felt safe.
Any other questions?
All right, up next, we have Allison for the active transportation plan update.
It'll be the other asterisk. Allison had her appendix out 2 weeks.
Ron Bernie, I read what's on the paper.
Yeah, that was the message. Apologies for that. Good morning, everybody. Addison here. Just to give a brief update on the active transportation plan, where we've been, where we're going, looking ahead. So the very first thing we did with your transportation technical committee members this morning was to thank them, offer gratitude for the time that they gave us over the past 3 months. Allison, Janet, and I, and Dylan on 2 occasions were out walking in your communities with transportation technical committee members, talking about what are your community's priorities, goals, current projects when it comes to active transportation. So we were in 15 communities. We also met with the Iowa DOT. We had a walk about Shelby, met with DART, we met with the airport. We've had a number of other stakeholders in the region go out on walkabouts with us as well. So gratitude for that. Some photos up here of those instances for your viewing pleasure, but I'll move on. Distilling down what has come out of those conversations is our current task. And so there's a few foundational pillars that I will just briefly touch on here. And one of them is our North Star. The MPO has committed to Vision Zero by 2045, zero fatalities and serious injuries by that time. And the active transportation plan is one of the mechanisms to move us towards that goal, along with all the other goals of the MPO. That includes the freight plan, that includes our public participation plan, and so on. All of those mechanisms and more do work with us towards those goals. So having committed to that with the active transportation plan as one of the core pieces that move us forward on that, we are looking at what are those localized solutions. What works for Des Moines may not work for Urbandale. What works for Cumming may not work for Norwalk. And so looking at what best practices we can pull out of the region and what we can highlight so that we can learn from what's going on here and elsewhere. Another, I think, really important piece to highlight with this plan and moving forward is that your communities are already acting on walkability in lots of different ways. The trail system as a recreational asset is such a huge part of our active transportation network, and continuing to enhance that, looking ahead as well to what it will cost, what it will take to maintain it is I think a piece of our plan as well. Prioritizing sidewalk gaps, trail gaps, and incentivizing developers to come into your communities to include those pieces of infrastructure from the get-go. It's also something that we're pulling out. And lots of your communities to that point are developing walkable market civic districts, and those nodes of walkability, seeing how they fit into the larger active transportation network, the bigger picture is also what we're doing at the moment. So that feedback and more is what we're responding to now from the discovery phase. And then just a few things on the horizon here. We are in all of our work, we're finding the connections between the MPO plans, the mobilizing tomorrow, the goals of mobilizing tomorrow, and the active transportation plan update, the freight plan update, the public participation plan, and what outcomes can come out of what we fund in the region, and also what is being done in the larger pie of communities acting on enhancing our network. Another really important piece of the active transportation plan is that pedestrian and bicycle level of stress analysis. So that is in progress, and the walk audits that you've heard us talk about on multiple occasions, American Walks, we had brought them in, I believe September, or maybe no, it was October. It was after the workshop. So their talk with you all at policy is the springboard for the MPO's rendition of a walk audit toolkit, which is in progress right now. Another big piece that Allison has been lead goose on, hence why we're at Gaggle, is the e-moto, and that is a rising topic in the region. And then we're looking at the different ways that we as the MPO can support the efforts that are being done to clarify that issue. So whether that be policy, whether that be educational programs, infrastructure enhancements, enforcement, interesting topic with that, and looking to funding. Yes.
One best compliment for Allison. Met with the police chief, Putza, I believe. And our police chief said that she's very knowledgeable and very helpful with all of it. So thank you very much.
So yeah, thanks, Dean. So to that point, Allison has been, she's been working with Plexa, with Mac, with Walkie's communications team as well, to see how we can, as a region, communicate this issue and clarify what it means for us in the short and the long term. So whether that's crafting model language, having creative messaging in the form of educational art pieces, or something a bit more tangible, that's what we're looking to with that issue specifically. So our engagement does continue. We are looking at what spaces we're being invited into and which ones we're inventing ourselves. Plexa is one of those examples. The communications team that Allison has been meeting with are one of those examples. If you have groups in your community, subcommittees in your community that are addressing this issue, other things having to do with active transportation, we will have an invite form that we'll be sending out in the post-meeting email where you can pass that on to them to invite us into that space, whether it's via fly on the wall or to give a presentation to speak about our work. So that's all I have on that at the moment. We're looking ahead, very excited about continuing this work, but very, happy to take any questions or comments.
Just a side question. I think when was it Walk America you were talking about?
American Walks, yeah.
I think we talked about if you're going to send out what their findings were, or is that going to be lumped into this discussion? Because I was just curious what they came up with by area.
So the workshop that we planned and hosted with American Walks and AARP Iowa was specific to that area, which was the Drake neighborhood, essentially. And so the focus wasn't exactly on auditing that area per se, although there are findings from that we will pull out and we'll have a report for after action report on that engagement specifically. But it was more of a train the trainer model and training not only us as staff on what a walk audit is, how to do it, and where it could be applied in our region, but also to those that were in attendance at the workshop. I think we had about 25 or 30 people representing a lot of different sectors in the region, and we've gotten some great feedback from them on how it's already been useful in their work. And so hopefully that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's more for you guys to learn from that.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
We'll be using that and the partners and things like that we built out to make a walk out of this more specific to what the MPO does, because we don't really work at the intersection level. We work at that corridor. So how do we modify those things? So to the outcome, a lot of new people were engaged, and so we're not the only people that will be doing the work too, which is awesome.
Anthony's not gonna be there because there's new rich people to drive everywhere.
Come to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Discussion on the executive director review. As many of you recall, we kind of pulled this forward this year to outpace the election turnover that starts in January. And we had the HR committee put together a schedule, which is where we're at now, where we have, I want to thank everyone for participating in the survey for one, and two, we have the results. The results average pretty much from 4.3 to 4.5 across the board, which indicates very high approval rating for Dylan. Along the way, we've created a matrix that was suggested we would use to determine his compensation based off of scoring. And today we kind of, as outlined, today we need to discuss what we would like to pay him. And then we can take that to the policy board meeting. The matrix suggests that a 4 to 4.4 indicates with a CPI increase along with the performance-based increase is 5%. And I think that would move Dylan up pretty much to the 99th percentile in his pay scale. So open to discussion. We will schedule, I will ask for an executive session to be scheduled at the next meeting if optional, and Dylan of course has to agree to that. But we could discuss the merits if people have questions or concerns at that point. I didn't know if anybody had any.
I think when we went into hiring Bill, there was a little concern that we got second year now. We can keep second, killing it, just loving it. I think this board is looking. It's a night and day difference in how everybody's did it work together. So I would support whether to the higher. I think we kind of brought him in at a low level.
Once we got Gatto under control, it was okay.
It was easy then, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm an Andwanger, but he's now.
In turn, move forward, we can discuss it, happy to speak with anyone if they'd like to discuss further. We can get into more detail with the executive session if needed in 2 weeks.
Well deserved. You're doing a great job.
We need to move.
We're not, this is an emotion, right?
We'll just move forward with the 5%. And of course, that's completely up for discussion at the policy board meeting to make adjustments, but we discussed here and there are no objections. We'll move forward with the recommendation of the meeting.
He was on the lower side. I think that needs to be clarified to the board too, when you got hired, right? I mean, I know 5% might be a lot, but you were hired at a lower level. So I think I think we need to.
I agree.
We need.
I hate to say it, but I agree with you.
We have to clarify that.
We put the matrix together for a good reason to help us guide us through and help us all, because they've all been really kind of approved and it takes into account what the rest of the staff is keeping everything.
Okay, good.
Perfect. Good work, Chair.
Yeah, nice job.
Consistency.
I'm just glad everyone participated and we don't have people coming in March to review him that have been in office for 2 months. Well, I've been on the MPO board for a matter of weeks.
Yeah,
2 meetings. Well, some of them in the sub areas.
No, nice job. Way to get it done.
All right, moving on, we have the 2026 MPO representative officer selection process. Dylan.
Thank you. So speaking of sub areas, it's time of year again, as was just said, we had elections, so it'll be getting time where in January or whenever you do this at your communities, you'll be appointing new or keeping the same, whatever it might be, technical and policy representatives to serve for the 2026 calendar year. So I want to walk through that process a little bit and then just to remind folks and give you some things to consider. And then there's an officer issue that we might need to address here temporarily. So if you want to move on there, it really depends on what size of community you are, of how this works according to our bylaws in 2080. So first of all, everybody appoints their own technical and policy reps. That's entirely up to you, regardless of your size. But really when it gets to the executive committee where the size comes into play. So communities under 50,000 are part of one of 3 sub areas. So you can see those sub areas listed there. The way this works now is that the communities, the mayors of those communities, North York County, the sheriff and supervisors get together and kind of caucus and come up with who are your 2 reps. Each sub area gets 2 representatives to serve on this committee here, this executive committee. And so that's what we need to hear back by February, really, because in February, that's when election happens, new officers take over in March. If you're over 50,000, you just get to determine who you're representing. So the moment you have 5 reps, you say, here's the 2 that are going to be our representatives. Polk County is a little more straightforward, even though they're not over 50,000, they're still a designated representative. Once we have all of those people determined, then this group and the policy committee can elect from that group, the 11 of you, the officers. So hopefully that's kind of straightforward. I know it's not straightforward. Hopefully the way I explained it makes sense. That's something that Scott and I will be looking at. How do we streamline this a little bit as we potentially update the 2080 bylaws here over the next year or so? That aside, that's kind of the process we have. So and I've covered this a little bit. The issue that we run into now, as was kind of joked about earlier, our current vice chair, Jeff, did not seek reelection. So come at the end of the year, calendar year, we will be without a vice chair. We went through this a couple of years ago with Stephanie Reba, and what our bylaws say is that the executive committee, the existing executive committee at that time just appoints who they want to fill that position. And last time they just appointed someone temporarily, they really only served for 2 months, and then March 1st again. That's when the new term starts. So whoever's elected will then take over. So that's one officer conflict, I guess we have now. We'll need to figure out, and we can discuss it today. And I'm not getting too far afield here of what my role is, but I think that's the intent, is we can discuss this today.
You
In
still have another
January.
year as chair, right? Or are you done too?
It's turned out.
Oh, yeah, you're done too.
We turned it down.
Okay, I didn't know.
You probably know.
At this point, we can put a plug in, if anyone would like to be vice chair for.
Well, I think Ted Weaver wanted to get on, right?
Yeah, I think, you have to be exec member.
You have to be on the executive committee to then be off.
Oh,
That's the issue.
No, we need,
Vice chair.
we need a,
Vice chair.
but I mean, I've already been the vice chair, chair can't be me. What?
when do you?
He's done. In March, I'm done serving, and because I love garbage so much, I'm going back to NWA. I'm transportation is something,
But you gotta serve as,
So you were chair for March.
right, I'm chair till March.
but you're staying on the NPO though, right? Because you're the former chair, you stay on the exec, right?
Well, I'm
He's not.
just an NTO.
Oh, okay.
I'm not gonna,
Who's taking that, who's taking your place at the county level, do we know?
right now, I think Chairman McCoy is interested. Okay, coming back.
You know, they can't make a decision there, Joe? No, they can't.
Okay, so the issue becomes,
We should go back and sort order, we need a vice chair. As of December 31st or January 1st, week 2nd, whichever.
Marquee, you're not sitting over there doing nothing.
Oh, you're right. My bad.
So then,
last couple weeks, the press hates me.
Hey, join the club.
It's, we like to spread the, take it out.
thank you is what we should say.
Mike Jones, Mike's sitting there kind of quiet with Steve.
Mike's in there all the quiet. See that suit that I'm wearing that I just came from port. I don't.
So
I
ultimately,
just asked him, and
Oh.
he said this himself.
I believe per that my sub area's rotation. Pleasant Hill should, I just texted that. Yeah, we're doing a rotation, so Bonnarant will kick off, Pleasant Hill will kick on, then I'll kick off next year. Bonnarant will be back, so we're kind of in a rotation, so you could have a Pleasant Hill person
I mean,
here.
so our bylaws clearly say the way it is right now, but if we could ask, and I think that's where Dylan, we discussed this, the sub areas would go ahead and appoint. Or the mayor start having those discussions early and let us know. We may be able to incorporate that in to the election.
So we need a chair and a vice chair.
Yeah.
Who's the,
Proposed secretary treasurer.
be the chair? Honest?
I got,
area is probably gonna have a bit of a road to recovery, but what we can commit to is having that conversation before the December exec meeting and figuring out who the reps are gonna be for here. So we understand if there's somebody that has history that we could safely nominate.
You know what I think this does, is it kind of leaves it to Todd. You're exactly. I mean, you're not a sub area, so you're gonna be here next year. So you just hop right up to chair. In March. What about vice chair? Well, you do that till March.
He can be the vice.
Say you want to be vice chair.
He can be vice chair for 2 months, then we'll make him the chair.
Yeah.
Tony can just move to the vice chair.
With 2 months of
Be
experience.
vice chair.
It's going to be, I think, as long as we have some names, obviously this group can have some lighthearted discussions on it, and ultimately the exec, the nominating committee will. And eventually I'm gonna need some nominating committee volunteers.
Nominate Todd.
I can't opt him if he's gonna be the vice chair.
That'll be me and you again, Dean.
Oh, what?
We were on the nominating committee last time, weren't we?
We got this.
Like, who's gonna be on next year?
I think,
And I'll do the same.
I mean, the bylaws, as long as we need to go. kind of love to bend the rules here, but not break, but as long as we know who's coming in the sub area, the nominating committee may be able to take those people into consideration, as long as nobody strenuously objects to it and says this, we're breaking the bylaws.
Sure.
So if we have a sub area, and I've heard that Ted's interested, and they know that he gets to come from the sub area, and he really truly is. I know Chairman McCoy was previously the vice chair.
He was.
And he was removed before he became chair, so he may be interested in coming back with his transportation history in the Senate and all that. So there's options, but we want to make sure that everyone has the same information. And if
When will he come back? Will you have him come back in January, or you're gonna serve?
well, if you want me to resign in January.
I just didn't know what your plan was.
Vice chair chair opening, and Mayor Bozen could then run it until we had all that. It just gets more complicated. I mean,
Too many veterans.
I'm
not looking for you to resign.
and what I want to make sure,
Can you show me the sub areas again, please?
what I want to stress more than anything here is that we're looking for volunteers. And we are anxious, we would love to have more names and less names, and then give the policy committee and the nominating committee that opportunity to interview people. What we don't want, or what I don't want, I'm sure staff doesn't want either, is that we just name somebody they become. So we do want, and there is a decision here, there's a political process here of electing a chair, and I just don't want anyone to think, well, if someone wants to take it, great. There's two names, there's a decision, Dean.
I would say, yeah, like what Courtney said, is if they figure out maybe Clive's on exact, like no Ted's interested. And if we get a Pleasant Hill person interested, that might give you a couple options anyway. And like she said, I've already sent a text, so I'll let you know where we sorted out on these.
Does Lynn stay on, is that?
I don't know. Sarah told me.
Yeah.
So we intend treasurer for when I first came on, so yeah, I think I consider this.
Away today, and he said that Ted would be interested if you guys are letting Clive take my spots. It's up to you, I don't care.
Have you been on for 2 years already?
Yeah, and I generally just don't like Clive do anything, but I would.
I don't blame you.
I cannot believe it's been so bad.
The other thing I would point out, if it's good possible, right, if you point to your folk, is that we don't have another situation where someone serves for 2 years and then doesn't run again, then we're right back in here, so that's not shut up.
That's the problem.
We can't take that.
That is the problem with the sub areas, so.
Yeah.
You get a little bit rotational, because we have Bondurant, Pleasant Hill, and Altoona that few people always want to be on exec. Altoona's not one of them, but.
Therefore, for the nominating committee to think about as they consider who's there.
But we'd appreciate the sub areas, advance those discussions and then let us know. And if December works, that's fine. January, yeah. So discussion is complicated. It takes long.
I'll know in a couple of days.
Oh yeah, I forgot. We don't have December policy meeting.
Yeah, I know.
We don't have a separate policy.
Names in as soon as we
Solidify. Yeah. And
solidify names, get them into you.
Yeah, I forgot about. Yeah, so strike that about.
So there's a lot of institutional knowledge that's leaving this executive. Yeah, there's a lot. No, I know, but I'm just saying this. Yeah, I'm good with that.
All right, everyone now knows it's completely wide open.
we saw the whole lot of nothing.
Up next are our informational items. Again, if there's something we need to discuss, we can discuss. Otherwise,
I will point out one item, and that's the Unified Planning Work Program Amendment. This will be on for policy, so you'll see more about it. This has to do with Altoona and Bondurant have received money for a study for the new interchange that's going to go in somewhere between Metropolitan and Altoona and Bondurant. They've received SDBG funds. When we give SDBG funds for planning or studies, those need to go in our work program. So that's all that is. So it is an amendment to the budget into the work program, but it's really just to allow those two communities to do what they need to do. It's not anything to do with MPO staff or our budget. It's more of a pass. So I just want to point that out.
questions? Are there any other
I got something personal. I've already talked to Dylan and Joe knows. I was in the hospital Monday through Wednesday, and I found out yesterday I have stomach cancer. So I'll be dealing with that. Meeting with the oncologist at 4. So I'll have a plan, but it looks like surgery and some chemo. Plan to be okay, so. Feel free to tell anybody. I plan to be okay.
You are going.
I'm just kidding. So just thought I'd let you all know what's going on. If I don't respond as quickly as I usually do. I have other issues, so, but anyway, thanks.
We'll be praying for you.
Yeah, I know that. Feel free to pass along.
Got a couple of items here I want to share.
Yeah, how do you follow that up?
Yeah, I know. Uh, We've been approached by a few communities in the northwest portion of the metro. So Grimes, Ranger, who's not an MPO member, but Ranger, Polk County Conservation, I think Johnson and Dallas County also involved. Wanting us, this is one of those things where it's a project that affects a lot of different communities, and so they're looking to the MPO to maybe lead this up. But they're looking at really a study on the northwest portion of the metro here. You kind of see that red box on the line on the map there. This is Xavier Avenue that comes down south from Ranger and it goes over the Brenton Slough or through the Brenton Slough if you're familiar with that. Polk County Conservation is in the process of taking over the Brenton Slough area. That'll become a county park. So there's implications for, right now that's a gravel road, but it probably should be something more than a gravel road. It's going to cross this environmentally sensitive area. There's recreational trail opportunities in that area. So just a lot of things happening here. In addition to all the 141 stuff that the DOT is working on, just growth from all those communities in there. So again, they're looking for the MPO to be the one that steps up and takes on that planning effort. Not to say we would be the ones doing the planning as far as our staff, but maybe we'd be the ones holding the consultants and working and convening stakeholders and so forth. Similar to what we've done with the Future 435, where it affects so many communities, it just makes sense that the MPO does that.
Paying for this.
So that's one of the next steps we'll have to figure out. It would be contributions from the communities is what we'd envision. I don't know that there'd be any MPO money, but if that's a
Is it an
discussion. we can
additional
have.
fee for those communities or no?
Not necessarily. I mean, if they're putting in money so that they're not individually doing 4 different studies.
The Ranger's not,
another-
Ranger's not part of it.
Ranger's not. I'll get to that in a moment.
Okay.
But if we look at our flow chart that we've talked about, would we get involved with things? We think this flows pretty nicely to where the MPO should be involved and should be a lead. It's a regional transportation project. It's got multiple members. No one else really makes sense to do this. Those are kind of the 3 things.
Really just throw this up to confuse and stuff.
Sometimes, but I try to put the red boxes in.
Then the red box itself will off you.
Oh, graduates, we need things like that.
Sorry, folks, graduation.
So if you go to the final slide there, I think right now, we're just really wanting to take your temperature and see, does that seem reasonable that the MPO should get involved with this? And we'll put this on policy committee. Yeah, we do have capacity to do that. A lot of this would be, again, holding contracts, convening people. We have some projects we're working on now that will roll off and free up time for us to do these kind of things. If everyone's good with that, we would probably come back in maybe February or so, looking at a work program, and then we'll have a better sense of what the scope will be, what budget will look like, how, what that exchange of dollars and everything will be. The other thing I want to kind of, to your point, to put on your radar is this is technically just outside the MPO planning area. Ranger's not in the MPO. They are interested now that they've talked to us and they know what we are, but they can potentially come in. So this could require a planning area boundary adjustment.
Want to be chair? Saying.
I will say that one thing Polk County Conservation anyway, Rich Leopold has pointed out is they have had coordination with Dallas County. So even though some of this is in Dallas County is totally comfortable with Polk County doing this and taking care of that line. I bet they are. Wow. And we will have conversations with our adjacent, we used to do SERPA here, so we know them well. We'll have, because that's technically their area.
Yeah.
So whether it's a joint project or we do it, if that's the decision here, we'll have those conversations too. But I just want to make you all aware of this. Kind of like, take your temperature.
You'll bring it forward in like in February.
So, will you need Serpent to do this or do you have?
No, it would be, we would do it. If they wanted to not give up control of that, that's where maybe it's a joint effort. If needed, I don't foresee that happening, but.
Then we roll back into that partnership thing.
Well, it would just be for this one project.
Okay.
We can have MOUs and everything that very clearly
I got you.
outline what you're coming.
It's
So that's one thing I wanted to bring. So if you have questions about that, talk more over the next few. Okay, next. thing here, staffing update. I mentioned at the policy committee, Carl Saxon, senior planner had moved on. We have named, Janet Slavic, our new associate planner. Janet is our current, or was our intern until we did this. So she is familiar with the MPO. She's done a great job for us over the summer. She's finishing up her master's degree at Iowa State, so comes in with a lot of, young, fresh, new ideas, and she'll be a great fit. So she's not here today because she's, again, in school still, but she will be here. Look forward.
She graduated in December.
She graduates in May, but in December, in the spring semester, she only had like one class, so she'll be able to do pretty much full time. And other updates, I think, not listed up there, but a few things I'll mention. The December meeting, we talked about that. See it on the schedule here. I don't foresee, unless something really pops, that we're going to have a reason to meet. So unless you wanted to convene to talk about the officer stuff a little bit more, we could do that. But otherwise, we foresee canceling that meeting and just giving you December for whatever you want. Future 435, I mentioned that a little bit. That process is moving along. One thing that will be coming to us here soon is an MOU with the DOT to just on the financial arrangement of all that. The DOT is the one leading that. We will pay them with our funding, so just getting all that squared away. Another thing is a survey. So part of my review process when the personnel committee was talking was we did surveys of staff and of policy committee, but we didn't do anything with the tech committee. And instead, what we are doing with the tech committee, and we'll do it with everybody too, is really a performance survey of the MPO overall to better understand what value do you get from the work products we do. And so the tech committee one will be a little more specific of, do you use the data bike, do you use trail counters, do you use our travel memo, whatever it might be. What else can we be doing? So we brought in America Walks. What other speakers would you want to see? Those kind of things are the questions that we'll be asking, and that'll help inform our 2027 work program that we'll start on here in the next month or so. It'll also inform some of the funding review process that we're going through now. It'll inform the Vision Zero work that we're doing. So we just want to hear from everybody, and this will be a chance to do it. So just a heads up on that we'll have more information from our tech committee, but you will also have a chance to weigh in on. I know we've done a lot of strategic planning, so I don't want to overdo it with you guys, but I think it's fair that, well, like you with tech.
You're visiting this America Walk in the house, but
I think that's all I have.
Anyone have any questions? You get Jeff a plaque or anything here?
it's got a sandwich.
Yeah, I got a sandwich.
Watch.
We should probably do something if we're not gonna have a meeting.
Hey,
We have the next policy meeting.
Oh, no, we,
No,
good work, Jeff.
no, you didn't. You better start preparing your comments. We'll have you up at the podium. County.
I might be eating some undercooked chicken that night before.
Well, all right, noted for December 4th, our tentative scheduled next meeting for exec, and everyone will see you in 2 weeks. We are adjourned. Thank you.